Hey, welcome to 49cc Scoot. My name's Brent, and today we're going to be checking out the Engwe M20 3.0 e-bike. I always like to give you guys full disclosure, so before we go any further, I received this bike at no cost in exchange for making a video about it. This is a very common practice in the e-bike world. In fact, I continually get emails offering me free bikes, but I wouldn't accept any because they've pretty much all been between 750 and 1500 watts and 20 to 28 miles per hour, which I know I wouldn't be happy with or really want to ride. And I figured being 6'2" and 300 pounds, the companies probably wouldn't like my assessments because rider weight has a huge effect on performance, so I'd be setting myself up for failure. In the case of Engwe, they were actually hoping to showcase the claim that their newest version 3.0 of the M20 e-bike has 120 Newton meters of torque to easily handle 2-up riding. The way I see it, at 300 pounds, if the bike performs well with me, then it should do well with two roughly average weight riders, so that alleviated one concern. The M20 3.0 claims to have 3,300 watts of peak power from its rear hub motor, and that's more than double most of the bikes that fill my inbox. And it's supposed to top out around 40 miles per hour when unlocked, which I'll talk about in a bit. What excited me even more was that their email said it could do 0 to 15 miles per hour in 2.15 seconds. And if you watch my videos, you know I love to do acceleration testing. The only thing left was to see what response I got when I told Engwe's representative that I would not be interested unless I could be honest about their product and how I received it. To my surprise, I was told that I had full freedom to be completely honest about the product, its performance, and how I got it. Wow, after years of hoping for an offer on an e-bike that I might actually enjoy and want to keep, it's finally time to test my first electric bike. Here's how the M20 3.0 showed up. This is the dual battery version, boasting a combined 2,400 watt hours that Engwe says is good for about 80 miles of range, of course depending on how you ride and how much weight it's carrying. Here's everything other than the bike that came out of the box. The second battery was shipped separately for me, but this is a pre-production unit, so your experience may vary. Once the frame was secure, I started out by removing the battery from the bike so I could start charging batteries while I worked. The battery unlocks with a key and then slides up for removal. The included charger only connects to one battery at a time, but once both batteries are in the bike and connected to the controller, both will be charged simply by connecting to either one. The advertising says that the 8 amp charger should take a single battery from 0 to 80% in just 2 hours, so you should never have to wait very long for your next ride. Both batteries had a minimal charge when shipped, and each one took between an hour and a half and 2 hours to reach 100% for me, so their claim seems pretty accurate. Step-by-step instructions are included, so I'm not going to give you a full rundown of assembly, but I will speed it up and show you so you can see what's involved. You'll see me using thread locker on some fasteners. Quite a few bolts actually came with thread locker pre-applied, and lock nuts are supplied as well, but I do like to use thread locker in most places that those aren't present as well. I've seen some people say it only takes around 30 minutes to an hour to assemble an e-bike, but I would suggest giving yourself much more time so you don't have to rush and you can inspect everything. The included toolkit can handle assembly, but if you've got your own tools, it's probably going to be much quicker and easier that way. The bike comes with an axle for shipping that needs to be replaced with the proper axle. Both of the 20x4 fat tires need to be inflated to a max of 20 psi, so I pumped the first up with a compressor and then tested the incredibly lightweight 3-ounce pump from the toolkit on the other one because I had my doubts if it would even do the job. It took some effort, but the tire reached 20 psi. The second battery had to be connected to the controller, and I had to mount its holder to the frame. I'm not sure, but it's possible that dual battery production models will have both batteries pre-installed. This little box that resembles a fuel tank is the only storage that comes with the M20, but Engwe does offer other storage solutions, and there's a whole world of aftermarket options that could be adapted. I later found that this little tank will hold all of the tools that came with the bike, plus a couple of camera batteries, my wallet, and some other small items. The chain was lubed at the factory, so the only thing left for me was adjusting the headlights. I've put together Chinese scooters and small motorcycles out of crates, and the M20 was definitely a better experience than I'm used to. I'm not saying it was all perfect, but it seems well made with a sturdy aluminum frame. Wiring and cables were neatly routed and secure, and overall it felt better thought out than the average Chinese two-wheeler. Let's talk about some specs and features. So this is version 3.0 of the M20, improving on the capabilities of previous models. One of the big highlights is the new 60-volt rated rear hub motor with 3,300 watts of peak power. Though at the time of this video there is no official spec for nominal or continuous power, which I think may be more useful because that tells you the wattage the motor can sustain for long periods of time, where peak just tells you what's possible in a short burst. Regardless, version 2.0 listed only 1,200 watts peak and 750 watts nominal at 52 volts, so this should be a big improvement. Engwe claims the 3.0 is capable of 120 Newton meters of torque, which translate to 88.5 foot-pounds. Honestly, that's hard for me to believe, but most e-bikes do boast very high torque values that look like fantasy numbers to me. To give you a point of reference, my 500cc Yamaha T-Max, that big one sitting right back there, is only rated at about 34 foot-pounds of torque stock. If you're looking for torque near the M20's rating in a gas-powered motorcycle, you'd have to go to something like the latest model Yamaha R1, that's 1000 cc's, rated at just over 83 foot-pounds of torque. Or if you're a Harley fan, a lot of their past and current 1200 to 1250cc models are in the ballpark of what Engwe is claiming this M20 can make. The more powerful motor also offers more speed, with the 2.0 only rated for 28 miles per hour, while the 3.0 is rated for 40 miles per hour, rider and condition dependent of course. Even with the motor upgrade, the dual battery version of this bike claims to be capable of an 80+ mile range, which I have to assume is only going to happen at lower speed or power use. To make sure you're both safe and comfortable, the M20 3.0 has front and rear 203mm hydraulic disc brakes with 4 piston calipers and a 100mm plus 55mm full suspension. It's even tunable to your liking with both preload and compression adjustments atop the front shocks, and twisting the spring to change preload or turning a knob to change rebound speed in the rear. Add features like dual daytime running lights and headlights, a rear tail brake light with turn signals, a long well-padded seat that can hold a rider and passenger, fat tires, an easy-to-read display, and a Shimano 7-speed gear system, and they've put together what appears to be a very capable machine. All of these features do make it a bit heavy for a bicycle. My scales say it weighed 116.2 pounds. 51 pounds front and 65.2 pounds rear, so the weight distribution is good. The extra battery kit was 13.2 pounds, so a single battery M20 should be about 103 pounds. The single battery version is $1,999 US, and the dual battery version is $2,499. That sounds kind of expensive to me, just from browsing other e-bikes, but other e-bikes that I've seen that are cheaper don't offer over 3,000 watts of power and up to 40 miles per hour. When you move up to really fast bikes, Surons and the like, they can get very expensive. The info that Engwe gave me mentions that this is a Super 73 alternative, so I looked these up, and they have less power, less speed, less range, and longer charging times for more money. So maybe the M20 is priced well for its position in the market after all. The good news is that there are promotions available near the launch of the M20 3.0 with big discounts. From March 2nd through the 16th in 2026, you can get $600 off of the single battery model, putting it at $1399, and the dual battery model is $800 off, so it drops to $1699, and they're including a $114 accessory bundle with them, so you can get a rear rack and a cargo net at no additional charge. If you wait a little bit longer, then the discount is reduced, and from March 17th through March 31st, the single battery version is $1499 and the dual battery version is $1799, and you still get the free accessory bundle. With those discounts, the M20 3.0 sounds like a much better deal, so you might want to take advantage of Engwe's promotions, and there's a link in the description of this video to check them out. I'm a motor scooter enthusiast slash addict, look around back there, and I've never ridden an e-bike of any sort before. So I really wanted to find out if an e-bike could replace or at least compete with a 49cc scooter and be useful and fun for short trips with similar performance. So that will shape a lot of my review. Try to keep this in mind throughout, because it will probably make my thoughts and opinions quite a bit different than someone that's more used to the e-bike world or that simply wants a bicycle on steroids. Out of the box, the M20 has riding modes 1 and 2, which conform to widely accepted classifications of e-bikes. Class 1 e-bikes can operate up to 20 miles per hour with motor power, but the motor only helps while the rider pedals, and that's exactly what Mode 1 delivers. You can select the level of pedal assist from 0 to 5 with the plus and minus buttons. 0 being no assistance, so it's just a bicycle at that point, and 5 being the most help from the motor. Class 2 e-bikes are very similar to Class 1, again limited to 20 miles per hour with motor power, but they don't require pedal assistance to operate. Mode 2 does just that, allowing you to pedal or go simply by using the throttle on the right handlebar, again with an adjustable assist level. The M20 3.0 can be unlocked to add modes 3 and 4 for even greater capability. Now we're getting somewhere. While in the riding mode menu, just hold the plus button for 5 seconds, and then the minus button for 5 seconds, and modes 3 and 4 will appear. Mode 3 allows the motor to work with or without pedaling, just like Mode 2, but the speed limit increases to 28 miles per hour, which conforms to common Class 3 e-bike standards. Mode 4 doesn't meet any e-bike classification that I'm aware of, but allows throttle only or pedal assist up to 40 miles per hour, and this is where I'd expect it to be the most like riding a scooter. I live in Maryland, and currently Class 1 through Class 3 e-bikes can be operated essentially just like a bicycle on roadways, requiring no license or registration, though you do need to be at least 16 years old to operate a Class 3 e-bike, and I can't find any age limits for Class 1 or 2. I'm not exactly sure where bikes above Class 3 fit into the law. For comparison, Maryland requires motor scooters up to 50cc and mopeds to be insured and apply for a sticker that acts as a sort of registration, and you have to be at least 16 years old with either a valid driver's license or a moped operator's permit to ride them. E-bikes get the win here, at least up to Class 3, with almost nothing required for operation. Enough talk, it's time to ride. The weather has been brutally cold here for too long now, but I really wanted to see what the M20 3.0 was like, so I started out with a quick ride into town and back. I used Mode 2 with pedal assist set to the max of 5, so I didn't have to pedal at all. It got up to the top speed of 20 miles per hour in Mode 2 easily and gently enough that I think anyone used to bicycles or bikes of any sort should be confident using all of the throttle from a stop. The motor barely makes a sound when cruising along at 20. I went down a partially snow and ice covered dirt and gravel road full of rough patches, mud, and puddles to see how it handled the bumps. The suspension worked well. It felt rough, but you'd probably need a Baja truck to smooth this out, and most of my scooters are at least as rough or worse. My only real complaint was the lack of sturdy footing. I'm used to scooters where my feet are on a footboard or pegs that don't move, so having only pedals that move didn't give me the confidence to go through anything loose or rough at any higher speeds. I got more used to the moving pedals with time, but I think my years on scooters will always have me wanting footrests that are solid, and I've never been into off-roading at all, so someone that mountain bikes would probably be totally comfortable blasting through the terrain where I'm more cautiously creeping along. I checked speed and distance throughout every ride that I took, and in the end, the speed was within 1 mile per hour most of the time, with the bike being on the optimistic side. Trip odometer readings did the opposite, and they were always lower on the bike than the GPS apps. But what's weird to me is that it ranged from 1% off to nearly 12% off. It was different every time that I checked. My first ride of roughly 4 miles in Mode 2 with no pedaling left the battery still on 100%, but I've only ever seen the value change in increments of 20%. I charged it up fully, and when temps got up to about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, I hauled the M20 to the nearby town of Easton, Maryland, which has walking and bike paths called Rails to Trails because they follow a route that was once made up of railroad tracks. I've been curious what they were like, but not nearly curious enough to actually walk it, and I sold my bicycle long ago because it had more dust and cobwebs than a haunted house. Only Class 2 or lower e-bikes are allowed on the trails, so I just kept the Engwe in riding mode 2. I have no idea if that actually makes it legal to use a bike that could be set to Class 3 or beyond, but I figured no one would ever bother me to check as long as I was courteous to anyone that I passed and not flying down the bike paths. I pedaled most of the time that others were around, trying to make the dual battery e-bike fit in out of paranoia, but I actually enjoyed being able to get a little bit of exercise from pedaling when I wanted to. The only time that I get any appreciable amount of exercise from scoots is if they won't start and I have to try and kickstart them over and over, or if one breaks down and then I'm stuck pushing it home. That reminds me, I also like the idea that if something goes wrong with the electric drive system, or if it runs out of juice, I could just pedal it back. I got to the end of the main stretch of trails and switched over to Mode 3, which increases max speed to 28 miles per hour and also changes the screen from green to gold. That way I could ride through town with traffic just like I would on a scooter. 8 miles per hour changes more than you would think. Now I could keep up with traffic on the 25 mile per hour streets, instead of worrying that I was in the way or trying to ride on the edge of the road like a bicycle and having cars squeeze me between them and the sidewalk or parked cars. I made my way to the next trail that I never even knew existed before doing some research when I got the M20. Once I had explored all of the trails, I switched over to riding mode 4, allowing speeds up to 40 miles per hour and turning the screen now red, and headed back across town to where I had parked the truck. I really thought Mode 4 would be some sort of unrestricted mode where power increased across the board, but it didn't feel much different aside from the higher speed potential. Still, it was pleasant to ride, and I realized that I even liked the way my pedal starts felt sometimes more than the throttle starts. Throttle application was generally smooth, but I felt even more in control of my takeoff by pedal starting with a bike's assistance. I made it back and took a trip around the sports complex before loading up. Even after being on the bike for a couple of hours, I still found the seat comfortable, which is not what I'd be saying on any sort of a standard bicycle seat. It's got plenty of padding and room for even a passenger, while still being narrow enough that I never noticed it while pedaling.
Yeah, it'll go up there. I just don't want to. Okay, I'll make it up. Okay, I'm gonna get out of here before I hurt myself.
I have a ramp that I use for scooters, but I found it totally unnecessary for loading and unloading the M20. I had been connected to Engwe's app during the ride, which had some info like distance, time, and speed, and even made a map of my route. The 13.5 miles around town, according to the GPS app, still left 80% battery life, which I thought was pretty impressive for the amount of time that I was out. Once I had some experience riding the M20, I wanted to see how it accelerates and find out if I could get anywhere near the claimed 0 to 15 miles per hour in 2.15 seconds. I started out testing with a draggy performance meter in different riding modes, but the data gathered showed that it would perform the same from 0 to 20 miles per hour in riding modes 2 through 4. So you're really just changing the max speed and not enabling more power all around by switching modes, and I wasn't getting anywhere near 2.15 0 to 15. There's a 0 startup setting in the menu that starts out at 3 but can be adjusted from 0 to 6. And it's supposed to change how much the throttle can help you start from a stop. I was hoping I could crank it up and get a hard launch, but unfortunately, I wasn't clear on which number gave me the strongest takeoff just by feel, so I did 4 1/8 mile runs back and forth on both 0 and 6 to get a definite answer. As you can see, there's not a major change, but 0 startup setting 0 was around 1 to 2/10 of a second quicker on average throughout. Now that I knew how to get the best results, I could enlist the help of a 175-pound friend to see what a more average weight person could expect.
Anything I really need to do?
It's literally just the half throttle. Just make sure before you start with a draggy or whatever, you just make sure you're like fully stopped for a second.
This is Mac, by the way. He spends most of his two-wheel time on his CBR 600RR, but he has ridden my scoots and we started out riding mid-bikes together, so he knows how to have fun on smaller bikes too. When we look at the results together, weight makes almost no difference for the first 5 miles per hour, but after that it's pretty dramatic. His 0 to 30 is over 6 seconds quicker than mine, and Mac makes it through the 8th mile nearly 2.5 seconds quicker and 4 miles per hour faster. Even with Mac riding, the average 0 to 15 mile per hour time was 3/4 of a second slower than Engwe's claim of 2.15 seconds, and none of his best results were much closer either. Okay, so what about if he pedals? Would that get him there? Not quite, but his best runs were within 0.15 seconds, so I think it's safe to say that 2.15 0 to 15s are plausible for some riders. I tried pedaling too. Clearly I was still nowhere near his times, but I actually saw bigger gains from pedaling than Mac had. Now for a little fun. I brought my 1996 Yamaha Jog 50 along so we could line it up with the M20 3.0 and see who comes out on top.
We'll get the old go on the third honk.
And it was over right from the start and only got worse.
I tell you what, to make it interesting, You start it. Go to that pole and I'll sit up a little further. I'm gonna go to the 25 sign, see if I can keep that.
Okay, so that wasn't really a fair comparison because I've put quite a bit of time into modifying that scooter. It's still all stock parts, all the way from the carb to the exhaust, aside from tuning bits like jets and roller weights, but it's quite a bit quicker and faster than it started out. So, here are some numbers from when it was totally stock. The only numbers I have are with me riding the jog, and that would have been one heck of a race versus Mac on the M20, and he could have even won if he pedaled. But in a fair comparison with me riding both, I may have kept up for a short distance from the start by pedaling, but otherwise, the scooter still easily wins. I also happened to bring along my 2004 Vento Triton, originally a 49cc, but now with a 94cc liquid-cooled power plant, just in case I needed something faster than the jog.
You see the light pole with a cone?
Cone way down there standing up?
Yeah, the light pole in front of that.
Yeah.
You think I can catch you?
Probably.
So do I. Try that one. A little bit different.
Give me 3/4 of the road.
Like I said, this one's a lot different than the other.
Yeah, I was like, man, I was like, come on. It was just, yeah, I heard you coming. I was like, there ain't no way. This thing, it ain't meant for that shit.
While I have a lot of freedom making this video, Engwe did provide reviewers with a couple of things they'd be interested in seeing. One suggestion was towing a car or multiple cars because they say the M20 3.0 can tow up to 5 tons. That definitely sounded entertaining to me, and I was curious to find out if it could really do it. We hooked a strap to an F-150 Super Crew pickup, which weighs in a little under 5,000 pounds, but with someone steering, let's just call it 2.5 tons, and pretty much exactly half of what Engwe says the M20 can tow. The other end of the strap went on a passenger foot peg so it will be down low and away from moving parts. Mac tried first while I sat in the truck to steer and brake as needed.
As fast as it goes, that's it.
That's full throttle. Like, yeah.
Well, I wanted to try for myself and see what it felt like, even getting ambitious and hoping that maybe we could pull the truck and turn it around.
All right, that's enough. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can like feel it.
Like I'm breaking this thing right now.
Yeah, that's when we were pulling. I could it almost felt like the gearing, like stuttering.
I had to see what the jog could do, so we hooked that up as well.
It's a struggle, but we're gonna get it. Oh, look out. One more time. I'm gonna give it another shot. Damn. Woo!
Are you going left and right?
That's entertainment. That is sketchy as hell.
I saw you going left and right. I was like, oh shit. I thought you were going to fall over first.
Okay, well, I'll give them credit. That was a lot harder than I thought. I honestly thought it would start moving and then it would just pick up, but
I do think the jog could have done a little bit better if the tow strap was attached lower instead of basically at the top of the scooter on the rear rack, but it was a good match for the M20. I think the Scoot could get the truck moving faster than the e-bike would if I was more comfortable on it, but I'm really glad that I tried it because before testing I was almost certain that the jog would outpull the M20, so it did make me respect the M20's abilities more, even though I can't see how it would pull 5 tons on flat ground beyond a snail's pace, if at all. The good news is, I don't think many people are actually buying e-bikes and scooters to tow their trucks around. Mac and I spent a little more time riding, just having some fun with the M20.
Like riding a bicycle where you know you can whip it around because it's light and all.
Yeah.
It's definitely that.
That's pretty quick. That led to some impromptu brake testing.
I mean, for a bicycle, that's real good brakes. Yeah.
It doesn't feel like I'm going to go over or anything. Like you feel very in control.
Like all the cats are safe in the neighborhood. Yeah, it looks pretty level. The front didn't squeal at first, but I've been in salt and everything else because of the weather.
Well, I was gonna say it's funny because when you were down there, between the brake noise and then it sounded like a distant tractor trailer.
It's pretty fun once you get used to it.
It is actually, yeah. When I slid that rear, I was like, whee!
Engwe also wanted the M20's hill climbing abilities to be showcased if possible. I live on the eastern shore of Maryland, which is known much more for flat farmlands, swamps, and beaches than rolling hills or mountains, so I couldn't think of anything incredibly steep, but there was a bridge nearby with an uphill stretch long enough that I could do 8th mile runs. I wanted to try a longer ride anyway, so I could better test the practical range with my riding style, so I set out before sunrise on a Sunday morning while there's hardly any traffic because most people are smart enough to stay in bed. That also gave me a chance to check out the headlights. Clearly it's not pitch black here, so it's hard to tell exactly how they'd work for peripheral vision, but they did a great job lighting the roadway directly in front of me. I also tried cruise control for the first time. All you have to do is hold the throttle where you want to cruise, and then hold the minus button until an indicator appears on screen to let you know that it's set. That's actually a really nice feature that allowed me to relax my hand a bit, and none of my scooters have it. So I guess that's another win for the e-bike. I did 4 passes up the bridge and 4 passes in the same spot down the bridge. It pulled up the hill, which my draggy said is as much as a 5% incline, without any trouble. It was obviously going much slower going uphill, but still pulled the 25 miles per hour with my 300 pounds on board. If you're looking at this bike for exploring bike paths and riding around town, then it should handle most grades while carrying a passenger based on what I experienced. I continued on from the bridge to a back road that has a few sharp turns in hopes of illustrating the M20's handling. I still wasn't used to the bicycle feel enough to push it, but overall it felt good and I was wide open most of the way. There are a couple of turns where I did not want to try them full throttle. I turned around to go through the fun section of road again, and faster through the first sharp turns.
Yeah. Well. Down there. Whew. Jesus Christ. That's gonna feel good tomorrow. Oh boy, that knee's gonna feel good.
Let's look at this again and I'll go over what happened. So I was headed into this turn at 35 miles per hour or maybe more from the downhill start, and I thought that was too fast. I went to use the rear brake to scrub off a little bit of speed, and down I went. What you might notice is that the front tire locks up and immediately puts me on the ground. That's because the brake levers on this bike are reversed compared to everything that I'm used to. Motorcycles, scooters, dirt bikes, pocket bikes, all of those have the front brake lever on the right side, and the rear brake lever is on the left side for automatics like scooters, or the right foot for manuals like motorcycles. So I used the left brake lever by instinct, thinking I was rear braking, which is the safer option in situations like this, but I really grabbed the front brake because of their positions on this bike. I've since looked it up, and apparently it's normal for bicycles and e-bikes to have the front brake on the left, maybe so you can operate the shifter with your right hand. The worst part is I knew the levers were reversed from the first time that I checked them before I ever rode the bike, but I never bothered to switch them around.
Well, I've broken that. I wonder if they've ever had anybody crash their bikes on a test ride. Thank goodness for gear. I'm also glad I'm wearing long johns under my jeans. But wow, that hurts. Definitely took a chunk out of my gloves. Oh God, yeah. Whew. Well, here's the real test. Can we still ride this thing? Oh, we got power. Yeah, she moves. See if it goes straight and everything. Oh, that elbow's not feeling great either. Oh boy. I feel a little crooked. Yeah. My handlebars are turned to the right a little bit when I'm going straight. So that's not a great sign. I may have just rotated this. That might be all that's happening. So let's see. Yep, there we go. Hot damn. We're good to go.
Any damage was on the right side, starting with a brake lever and the shifter being skinned up, but both worked fine. The pedal and passenger foot peg took most of the fall and slide damage. Paint was messed up from my 360 cam mount sliding during the crash, and one bolt and the seat mount got very minor damage. After the handlebar clamp was tightened, I never had any more trouble with the bike, so the M20 3.0 must be pretty well made to take that sort of hit and carry on almost like nothing happened. As I continued to ride, the lower the battery level got, the lower my cruising speeds would be, dipping into the upper 20s instead of the usual low to mid 30s. It could still cruise over 30 at times if I had a tailwind or a little boost to get me there from a decline. I returned home with a battery at 20% after 28 miles according to the GPS app, or 27.4 miles by the M20's account. That's a far cry from the 80-mile range claim, but advertised range on electrics is never done with wide open throttle cruising and doing acceleration runs uphill, and I've been riding in 30 to 50 degree weather that's not great for batteries. Before receiving the M20, my thought was, if I could trust it to go 30 miles without running out of power, then it could actually be something that I'd want to keep and ride. Considering the hard use and still having 20% left at 28 miles, 30 miles sounds doable even if there's some battery degradation over time. Motor scooters effortlessly win the battle, with even a single gallon of gas being able to give me at least 50 miles of cruising faster than the e-bike will, and the ease of filling up with gas and carrying on as long as I'd like. One major topic that I've skipped over so far is top speed. As I've said, Engwe rates this bike for 40 miles per hour depending on the rider and conditions. I've stretched its legs a bit and found that if I tuck down and have some help from a substantial tailwind, I did see 40 miles per hour on the screen, though always stopping at 39 miles per hour and some change with GPS apps or the Dragon. Even going downhill, it won't pass 40 on the gauge, and in fact I can hear that the M20 is regulating the motor use to limit the speed to 40. It turns out that even unlocking Mode 4 never truly unlocks what the bike could be capable of. Since I don't know a lot about electric bikes, I'm going to guess that maybe that's there to prevent overheating and excessive battery drain, or possibly due to tire speed ratings and rider safety. Even more disappointing for both Mac and I was the lack of strong takeoff that definitely didn't feel unrestricted or unlocked in any mode. As I've shown, it compares well enough to a stock 49cc scooter, but if settings would allow the abruptness of throttle to be turned up significantly, I bet it would be a whole lot more fun for some of us. Okay, now let me summarize the M20 versus 49cc scooter comparison, starting with price. Price on a scooter is a little bit more tricky because you can't just buy a new Yamaha jog like mine, but currently you can find Chinese scooters around $1,000 to your door on the cheap end, and brands like Honda and Kymco for about $3,000 to $3,500. If you want a Vespa, then you could pay $4,000 or more. I can't really give a win to either bike here because there are so many variables. For legal requirements, I considered the M20's various modes, and in Mode 3 you only need to be 16 years old and wear a helmet to operate it. Mode 4 is a gray area and I don't really know where to put that. In Maryland, you need either a driver's license or a moped permit to operate a scooter, both of which would require you to be 16 years old, and you need insurance and a registration sticker, all of which would add to the cost. Regarding where you're allowed to ride, the e-bike wins by a landslide, being able to ride on roadways similar to the scooter, but adding in trails and paths that scooters are not allowed on. Next up is speed, and the M20 could cruise with me in the low to mid 30s on flat ground, but speed reduced as the battery is drained. In comparison, the stock jog would cruise in the mid to upper 30s and maintain that speed as long as there's gas in the tank. Since you can't buy a new two-stroke jog like mine, most 49cc scooters will cruise anywhere between 30 to 40 miles per hour and top out somewhere near 40. The jog wins over the M20 in the acceleration category, but if you choose something like a new Chinese 4-stroke, it would be a close match and the M20 may even take it. Range is really no contest in my opinion. Because it was cold during my test, which is bad for batteries, I'd say the dual battery M20 would likely go between 30 to 50 miles of 30 miles per hour or above cruising before it had to be recharged. I think 50 is probably generous, but I'm not sure what a lighter rider may be capable of. Most 49cc scooters should be able to do at least 40 to 80 miles on a tank of fuel, but where the range comparison becomes no comparison is downtime. The M20 has fast charging capabilities, but you're still looking at hours before you can ride again if the battery is drained, while the scooter can spend minutes filling up with gas and be back on the road over and over again. Comfort is probably the most subjective of any category, but I have to give it to the scooter because I can step through the frame instead of having to throw my leg over, and most will have much wider seats and solid footrests. For carrying ability, scooters tend to have under-seat storage areas and floorboard space, plus many have a rear rack included. It's enough to carry some groceries home. The M20's tank storage is enough for its toolkit and a few small items, but you'll need an add-on of some sort if you want to carry much more. I didn't put exercise on this list because I'm primarily comparing machines for use like a motor scooter, but I would have to give the Engwe bonus points for the ability to get some pedaling in if you want to. Listen, so much of this is opinion, and I can't really tell you which one is the best for you. Plus, there are areas of concern that I'm not covering, for example, battery replacement interval versus mechanical repairs, storage safety of a scooter that could leak gas and oil versus an e-bike with batteries that could be a fire hazard. We could even get into a debate about environmental impacts, which isn't as simple as it may seem, but I'm not knowledgeable enough on all aspects, and some of it opens a whole can of worms to research and report on. What I can tell you is that I think a lot of people would find the M20 to be very convenient transportation, and I think if I lived in a town or city with a short commute, I'd be likely to choose the e-bike. I don't though. I live in a rural area where groceries and fast food are 8 miles one way, and much more than that would be 10 miles or more each way. But I've got a gas station within 2 miles in either direction, and a lot of back roads to ride. I also happen to love engines. Listening to them and modifying them makes me happy. Feeling the difference when you port a head or a cylinder or install a big bore kit is fun to me. I don't think that swapping electric motors and controllers would give me the same joy, although I know that the really high watt stuff is wild and can be downright terrifyingly quick. And I'd probably like the process of trying to dial in a hot-rodded e-bike to improve acceleration times. Most likely I'll always have a passion for motor scooters and engines in general, but practically I like to ride, and not just 30 miles at a time, so it would be pretty hard to replace my scooters. I will hang on to the Engwe M20 3.0 for a while though. Maybe I can check out some more trails that I likely never would otherwise, and I'll definitely see how it works out for more short trips, after I reverse the brake levers to scooter standards. I'm not sure that my experience was what Engwe was hoping for when they sent me a free bike, but a big thanks to them for giving me the opportunity to check out the M20 and to be honest about my experience. If this video has helped you or if you've enjoyed it, please give it a like and subscribe for more of my content. Be sure to check out the link in the description for the M20 3.0 so you can get the best deal and it'll help me out. As always, thanks for watching.